Belgioioso Cheese is a family-owned and operated company specializing in artisan Italian cheesemaking. Using only natural ingredients and fresh, local Wisconsin milk, master cheesemakers handcraft a full line of exceptional cheeses, guided by a commitment to quality and a respect for tradition. Ask your distributor about Belgioioso's award-winning fresh mozzarella, burrata, ricotta, mascarpone, American grana, and Parmesan. At Belgioioso, every cheese is a specialty.
Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Extra Serving, a podcast from Nation's Restaurant News. I'm your host, Leigh Zinsmeister. This week, we have an abundance of menu innovations to talk through. Some on-trend updates are happening at KFC, which added a new sauce to its nugget lineup. Krispy Kreme came out with donut holes for the very first time, and Taco Bell is continuing to innovate on beverages with its new Limonada Freeze. And then, as we continue to delve into Technomic Top 500 data, our executive editor, Alicia Kelso, did a deep dive into what restaurant closures could mean for the industry at large. We've heard some loud opinions about restaurants' death knell and apocalypse. Are these declarations overblown? Finally, we'll share a recent conversation between senior food and beverage editor Bret Thorn and Ascent Hospitality's VP of Menu Innovation, Mindy Armstrong. They talk about menus at the company's two family dining chains, Perkins and Huddle House, including my personal favorite, cinnamon rolls. And now, allow me to welcome my co-host.
I'm Sam Oches, editor-in-chief of Nation's Restaurant News.
Thanks for joining me here today, Sam.
Hey, thanks, Leanne, for welcoming me back onto the podcast. It feels like it's been a few weeks, but happy to talk about all things restaurants. It's been a busy few weeks.
Glad you're here.
In a lot of ways.
What have you been up to?
Oh, what have I been up to? Well, it's summer, Leanne, so that means I'm losing my mind because my kids are home. So trying to find ways to get out of the house, that's definitely something that's been happening. Trying to keep my 7-year-old and 5-year-old from murdering each other. That's been a pretty key thing. Now, the one thing I would say is a big win so far for the summer is that surprisingly, my kids have been good eaters. And recently that included our visit to Huey Magoo's, which is a brand that we've talked about at NRN, we've written about, and perhaps some folks in our audience are familiar with Huey Magoo's. It's a franchise out of Florida, chicken tenders. They claim to be the filet mignon of chicken, which I wasn't so sure what to make of that claim, but can assure that they were really good chicken tenders, and my kids ate them up, and that is a big, big win in my book. So,
High praise.
High praise. Lots of great sauces, so it's fun. You can, you try all the different sauces.
Okay, very trendy.
Also, the menu is expansive, and I'm not trying to take a dig at Raising Cane's, but sometimes you're just in the mood for something other than chicken tenders. And so they have salads, they have sandwiches, they have wraps, which is helpful because, of course, my kids love chicken tenders. They're kids. But I don't always want chicken tenders. My wife doesn't always want chicken tenders. So really something for everyone in a fast casual setting and very high quality. So yeah, that was my most recent enjoyable food experience.
I personally am not familiar with this not in the mood for chicken tenders thing you describe. I am a couple of years younger than you, so maybe it's coming in my immediate future.
It is rare.
I will have to, next time I'm in the vicinity of a Huey Magoo's, I'm going to have to check that out.
You got to go check it out. They're growing. I'd have to double check the numbers, but I do think they have several dozen locations. Again, they're franchise. They've been around for a while. Andy Howard's the CEO. Andy came from Wingstop. So some chicken pedigree, if you will. Yeah, I mean, hey, chicken, right? The chicken category is hot. Will probably never not be hot. But you do have to differentiate in the chicken category because, there's a lot of chicken players out there. So I think they did it well. So anyway, if you're near Huey Magoo's, check it out.
And if you are also interested in double checking those numbers, I know a place you can do that. It's nrn.com, and then just find our top 500 content, which is not hard to do.
Wow, tell me more.
And it's all there, all the data for big restaurant chains, and we're still adding more every day. There is simply so much.
Yes.
So that is where we're at. All right. Well, speaking of chicken, and sauces and all things trendy. KFC this week.
It was so broad. That was such a broad segue. You went with the bazooka approach. Let's go for all of the things.
I'm new with this segue thing. I'm hoping we can refine my skills as we go. KFC has been at the forefront of some chicken trends for a while now. They have had saucy nuggets, but they have added another sauce this week, or perhaps late last week. It is a honey barbecue sauce, which I was kind of surprised to learn that they had some other sauces and not a honey barbecue. That one feels very common and very popular and delicious. So what do you make of this addition right now? We've been talking about sauce so much.
Well, the first thing I would say is appropriate to this conversation is I have a stampede of rhinoceroses going on above my head. So, the fighting children, you're going to get a taste of that perhaps. So I apologize.
Wonderful.
But this is one of those things where it's like honey barbecue. Hello, honey barbecue's been around forever, right? It doesn't seem like it would be innovative to say we have honey barbecue sauce, but when it's at a major chain like a KFC, yes, that is an innovative thing because the major chains typically are fairly limited when it comes to their sauces and their condiments. But I think you alluded to, there are a lot of new sauces going on out there. Sauce seems to be very on trend across the restaurant industry. And there's good reason for it because this is such an easy way for flavor exploration. Customers today are value oriented, yes, but are not going to, lower their standards for quality. They're not going to stop looking for interesting, exciting, adventurous flavors. So how do you, as a value oriented restaurant chain, develop something new and exciting, but while maintaining your margins and ensuring that, you're not adding some huge expense via new ingredients, via new equipment. Sauces are such an easy way to do that because they're high profit margin items in that they can add lots of excitement to your menu at very low cost. So when KFC adds a honey barbecue, yes, that's a big deal because that is a major chain making what is ultimately a major change in adding a new item like a sauce. But as I was alluding to with Huey Magoo's, right? Lots of sauces, lots of flavors. I think that if you're looking for some low hanging fruit when it comes to menu innovation, sauces just make a lot of sense because again, fairly low cost, but a very easy way to add some excitement to the menu. There's hundreds of ideas out there. Go global, right? Global foods are hot right now, as we discovered in the top 500. Try some, go with gochujang out of Korea if you want to try something, different and global. Or, I'm not going to start rallying off all these global sauces because I'm going to embarrass myself. But I guess point being is that there's a lot of ideas out there and it's fairly low cost and it's going to bring customers in your door. So why not?
Yeah, what's interesting about that point, Sam, to me is that KFC already had Korean barbecue sauce. So they kind of started global. They launched that one back in April. And now they're moving into these more, I guess, common American quote unquote sauces, which kind of says to me that the sauce thing is here to stay. At least at KFC, they're leaning into more universal flavors that are enjoyed by many.
Well, and honey barbecue is going to be an easy one to leave on the menu, right? I mean, that one's always going to be beloved.
Exactly.
Some of the global ones you might try as an LTO, just kick some tires and see what happens. But yeah, go with some safe bets for sure to add to your permanent menu. Try some other fun things as LTOs. And I guess the last bit I would say about this too is the customization factor, which is chicken's so great because you're looking for a sauce to dip. It's not necessarily something you're putting as a spread on a sandwich. But that customization ability for a guest to come in and choose which sauces they want to dip their chicken into, as an example, there's a fun factor to that. And I think just all around just makes too much sense to improve the experience and certainly improve the culinary excitement at your restaurant.
Sure. Yeah. Another chain leaning into some sort of operationally simple but perhaps obvious menu innovation is Krispy Kreme. This week unveiled its what they are calling donut dots, which are essentially donut holes. And I think everyone on our team kind of went, why didn't they do that sooner?
Yeah.
Donut holes are something you can get at Dunkin', I think most famously with their munchkins. They're also a big thing at Tim Hortons. And here's
Timbits.
Timbits and munchkins and donut dots. They've all got these cutesy names. I can see it in your face.
And you know why is because, of course, I'm well familiar with all of them because, of course, my children love all of them.
I'm sure you are. I'm sure they do. Have you been to Krispy Kreme yet to get a donut dot?
Not a donut dot, but I do have a Krispy Kreme very close to my house, so I see some donut dots in our future.
I think that's coming for you. So these donut dots, they come in 4 varieties. Krispy Kreme, of course, has been working on increasing its points of access. You can soon you'll be able to get Krispy Kreme at your local McDonald's. Walmart, I think, is a big partner. But this is the first, I think this is the first menu innovation we've seen from them in a while. So they are mixing it up, trying some new things. And I can't see this being anything but successful. I mean, donut holes are already, as I said, so popular at other similar brands. And here we've got, those other two, Dunkin' and Tim Hortons, are, at least in my mind, more coffee brands than donut brands.
Yeah. I mean, their sales would play that out for sure.
Dunkin's rebranding a few years ago really worked on me, apparently.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to see the big donut chain leaning into this now.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had said before we hit record, I mean, this really reminds me of Popeyes and their chicken sandwich was like okay, like, well, that was obvious. And then I expect maybe not at historic levels like Popeye's chicken sandwich, but I would expect the donut dots to be big for Krispy Kreme. I mean, it just makes too much sense because, again, similar to sauces, right? Like you're not really changing a whole lot, there's really going to be no, I imagine, added expense aside from maybe maybe there's a different piece of equipment you need to make these dots. I don't know. But again, as I mentioned, my kids love donut holes, donut, whatever you want to call them. And it's funny because it's like, well, why? Like, what's the difference? It's the same material. It's the same flavors and taste. But frankly, that format is just easier for one, and it's more fun. It's, it was not uncommon for us. At our last house, we had a Dunkin' right by us. And whenever we would hit the road on a road trip, we'd swing into the Dunkin', get a big box of the munchkins, a variety pack. So it was the kind of all the flavors they had available. And they would just sit in the middle of the car and we would all just kind of grab some, right? It's so much easier than a paper wrapped donut that you're trying to like get, not your hands, your fingers sticky and all that. And so I do think that kind of goes back to what you were saying with accessibility. So yes, accessibility in terms of where they're selling from, like at McDonald's. But I also think accessibility in terms of this is going to be way easier to be on the go. It's going to be way easier for example, like a catering order, like sending big boxes of these donut dots to a company for a breakfast or whatever. It just fits a lot more need states than your simple donut can do. So again, very easy innovation here, very low cost innovation that I think will appeal to people simply because of how they engage with the product.
Totally. And the last menu innovation from this week that I think we just can't not talk about is Taco Bell's new Limonada Freeze. Beverage innovation, obviously, really what all restaurants are trying to get on right now. And Taco Bell is always at the forefront of any kind of menu innovation. You know that better than anybody, having been to their, what do they call it?
Oh, the Innovation Kitchen.
The Innovation Kitchen at their HQ last year when you got to try all the upcoming things. So here we have one more beverage innovation from Taco Bell, another frozen drink, which they've done before. So operationally seems like it's probably just replacing whatever frozen drink they were offering previously. But interesting to see the innovation continues. One of the flavors for these limonadas is vanilla cream, which feels to me like they're leaning into, I mean, it wouldn't be a dirty soda because it's not soda, but mix-ins, certainly another huge beverage trend right now. Yes. So what do you think? Any extra insights into this one?
Well, I mean, Taco Bell, they're the masters at menu innovation. So, and they don't do anything without really calculating sort of the potential of it, in that they are constantly testing new items. They are Liz Matthews, their head of menu innovation. She has mentioned, they're constantly taking big swings. But you have to take big swings while also balancing sort of the demand for a product, and also, of course, supply and things like that. So anyway, I imagine like a lot of their other recent menu rollouts, has a lot of potential. But this particular one, quite different than something like, for example, a Cheez-It Crunchwrap. This has so much potential to open up new need states. This is something where maybe you're not in the mood for food, but you want a cold, refreshing beverage. And this is something where you swing into Taco Bell instead of swinging into Starbucks for that, nice iced cold beverage. Beverage, we've been talking about, we'll continue to talk about a lot, similar to sauce. Just a really great opportunity for low-cost, high-profit margin menu innovation right now. And we saw that at the restaurant show in Chicago a couple of weeks ago. There was boba everywhere. There was, certainly coffee innovation everywhere. Beverage in general right now is just one of those easy ways to innovate without it being this very high cost, low profit margin item. And also clearly the taste in the consumers is evolving. To your point, dirty soda is really hot right now. Metaphorically speaking. And, you of course have all sorts of these other very fun, creative beverages that are popping up at all of the coffee drive-through places like Seven Brew and Dutch Bros. As all of this stuff becomes a lot more mainstream, that gives Taco Bell permission to go out and start testing a lot more iced cold beverages with some of these fun flavors that maybe wouldn't have worked 5 years ago, but now work because of that that mass appeal that these beverages are suddenly finding. So I expect another big hit for Taco Bell. But again, just for the sake of the listener, in terms of if you're looking currently at ways to innovate on your menu or ways to draw your customer through your doors more, which everybody is, beverage innovation, there's so much out there, and there's so much more permission you have to try some fun, creative new things. And you can do that without destroying your profit margin.
Absolutely. All right. Well, it wouldn't be extra serving if we didn't bring down the room a little bit.
Yeah, let's end on a sour note. That's a good idea.
I'll try to come up with something to end us on a high note. But first, we do need to talk about restaurant closures because they feel a little incessant right now. Some data from 2023. 33% of the top 500 restaurant chains experienced a net decrease in locations last year. 17 chains had double-digit unit count retrenchment in 2023. Those are some surprising numbers, especially for a year that on the surface had good sales numbers, although of course we know a lot of that came from inflation, mid sales numbers, but sure. And it hasn't stopped. Even, Alicia Kelso wrote this analysis on Monday. And that same day, Chewy's announced closures, a big public casual dining brand. Obviously, we've had Red Lobster, Tijuana Flats. It feels a little rough out there right now. People are saying this is the restaurant industry's, quote, apocalypse. What do you think, Sam? Are we at that point?
As I wrote as part of our top 500, no, the sky is not falling. I think, there are certainly some warning signs here indicative of, the state of the economy and the direction we might be heading in as an industry. In that, I think we will see some softness, right? I mean, our partners over at Technomic just lowered their forecast for 2024 because of some of the performance from Q1, and because largely we do see a lot of struggles out there in the restaurant industry. And so a lot of this is just indicative of all of that's going on. Now, there's a difference, of course, between your bankruptcies and your closures. So you do see some crazy stuff in the bankruptcies, such as Red Lobster. And that is, a whole other thing where you have companies that are mismanaged and that, just ran into this buzzsaw of the economy in a really poor shape. and they just had to file for bankruptcy because of that. With the closures, I think there's something else going on. I mean, if you want to look at this from a positive spin, I think that a lot of the innovation in the last 5 years with the digital innovation has allowed restaurants to get a lot more out of individual restaurant locations because of off-premises service. Maybe even if you went down the road of virtual brands and ghost kitchens and stuff like that. I constantly think of Jack in the Box as a good example of this with I think the digital kitchen, maybe I'm getting them confused with Taco Bell, but digital oriented kitchen, certainly, that Jack in the Box, their new prototype was their increased AUV at these new prototypes because they just designed it to be more efficient and more oriented around off-premises service. And that's just a great example of how restaurants, you can get more out of it with less. You can shrink the size of your footprint and still do even better AUVs just because of the opportunities available through digital ordering and off-premises service. So to some degree, if you want to look at this positively, you could see some restaurants just sort of trying to right size their unit counts because they're recognizing that they maybe, have some underperforming locations that can go, and they can try to create some efficiencies at the existing locations to get more out of them. So that's one way to look at it. I mean, another way to look at it is just, frankly, it's just, the state of things today as an industry. Customers are pulling back on their restaurant spend. There's a chance that could be a long-term thing, and restaurants are just trying to right size to account for that. And you have that comes in cycles. I mean, we certainly saw that in the recession of now going on, 15 years ago. Ooh, I keep saying a decade ago, but that was 15 years ago.
Wow.
Oh man, I feel so old. 15 years ago, you saw a lot of this too, because it's just like, to weather the storm, you're just going to have to have some closures. It's just going to be the reality of things. But I do expect, hopefully, the industry, with the technology available to restaurants today, the efficiencies that you can create in the kitchen and the front of the house, take this opportunity that your existing locations to really strengthen them with these new technologies to find efficiencies. Because on one hand, you might not need to go out and open a bunch of new locations. And in some ways, you might be able to pull more out of each of the individual stores that you do have open. But frankly, you're just going to also have, with the restaurant consumer today pulling back, you're just going to have some examples of locations that aren't going to cut it anymore and just are not worth keeping open, whether that's because of your labor costs, but whether it's because of your operating costs just in that particular market. And you might have to make some of those tough decisions.
Sure. All right. Well, in the interest of not ending on tough decisions, Sam,
Yes.
What's something you're looking forward to?
Oh, in general or for the restaurant industry?
It's a very broad question that you can interpret however you like. Hit me with something you're looking forward to.
Looking forward to getting some vacation because, as you well know, I had a baby 3 months ago and have not gotten nearly enough vacation since that. My wife will be very happy to hear that as well. I'm looking forward to a summer of new food experiences, something that I'm trying to commit myself to. And Huey Magoo's was a part of this. Look, I live in Columbus, Ohio, which is a big market for emerging chains and new, restaurant tests and things like that. And I'm going to try to commit myself this summer to getting out more and checking out new emerging chains. Stay tuned on our Instagram because I'm getting video. There will be video of me doing this. Look, as a father of young children, particularly with a baby, my restaurant experiences have already been cut back from what they used to be. So, but this summer I want that to change. So I'm going to get out there. I'm going to try some new foods. If you're listening to this and you have a restaurant in Columbus, hit me up. I'm going to check it out. And maybe even do some fun social video for it too. What about you, Leanne? What are you excited about?
Thanks, Sam. Well, the most immediate thing I'm excited about, so immediate that it will be in the past by the time our listeners hear this, is that tomorrow I am flying down to Florida to get a taste of Blaze Pizza's new menu.
That is very exciting.
They are completely relaunching their menu. So I'm going to go down, meet some of their executives, and try it all out. And then I'm going to Disney World. So
That's pretty sweet.
That's what I'm looking forward to. Again, by the time you listeners hear this, that will be in the past. But you can also probably check that out on our Instagram as well, which, by the way, is at Nations Restaurant News. So these are things that we can all look forward to together.
Yes, indeed. I already checked that box with Disney World last year, but I'm happy for you. I love that for you. Just remember your sunscreen and try not to melt.
I will do my best. I'm from Arizona, and I feel like that is this is one that comes in handy. It's just the humidity I have to battle.
You've had good practice.
Yeah. I think so. All right. Well, as I said at the top, our interview today is with Senior Food and Beverage Editor Bret Thorn and the VP of Menu Innovation at Ascent Hospitality. So I will hand it over to Bret. But Sam, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Leanne.
And we will talk to you next week.
How you doing, Mindy Armstrong?
I'm so happy to talk to you.
Likewise. And I want to catch up with you on the chains that you represent, because we don't write about them all that much.
Okay, let's start doing it.
Yes. So, when it's funny, when I thought about Perkins and Huddle House, I was like, well, those are quite different chains, but actually, no, they're family dining.
That's right.
Yeah. A lot of down-home, yummy, I'm thinking biscuits and gravy.
That's right.
Kind of. Do they both have biscuits and gravy?
Both have them, yes. So, yeah, very classic hometown comfort foods are on both menus. And they have a little bit of a different twist on each of them, of course, based on where they are in the country. And but both in family dining, both serve a customer that's looking for that home-style, delicious comfort food that they can get from both brands.
And I think of Huddle House as mostly southeastern and kind of small townish. It's not like city center downtown kind of place.
That's right. Yeah. So we have the opportunity to serve areas where they might be one of a few restaurants rather than in the middle of a metro area. So that'll give us a chance to really kind of be a hometown diner for a lot of our guests. So they're familiar with us. It feels like their local spot. Usually, we're known for our friendly service, which is super cool. And so a lot of the team members that serve our guests know them because it's their neighbors and friends.
That's nice. And how about Perkins? I think of Perkins as Midwestern, but I don't know if that's
true. So Midwestern, so we're in Minneapolis, we're in Missouri, we're in Tennessee, we're in Iowa, we're, Midwestern brand, goes a little bit more like north. We've got some headed over into the Northeast, but it's a Midwestern brand through and through. It was founded in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Makes sense. Are you guys still at Perkins in my hometown of Denver?
We do have a location in Colorado. I don't know that it's in Denver.
I worked at a Big Boy restaurant in Denver.
Did? Okay.
Yes, Azar's Big Boy, which I knew I was going to get a good tip anytime someone ordered a hot fudge ice cream cake because they were going to be happy.
Yeah.
But then that was closed and was replaced by a Perkins right in the middle of Denver. I don't know if it's there anymore, and it's not that important.
Chuck, I know we have a location in Colorado, though, so that's awesome. I hope it is still in your area.
So are the biscuits and gravy different at the two concepts?
So, I mean, not terribly different. It's still biscuits and gravy. We just have like a different take on it. So, for instance, at Huddle House, we have this amazing sausage gravy that's a different gravy than we serve at Perkins. So, a little different take on it.
Does that have to do with just the traditions and culture of the two different concepts, or are there regional differences?
Yeah, so Huddle House is a little bit more southern, so a lot of our applications tend to lean a little bit more southern, whereas Perkins is a Midwestern brand, so we certainly still have those family favorites like gravy and biscuits, but it's I wouldn't call it as much regional differences because I kind of think about biscuits and gravy still as pretty southern. We just have a different take on it in the different restaurants, so the recipe's just different.
Yeah, I thought of biscuits and gravy because that's It's my favorite breakfast when I'm in the South.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't eat it that often because it's not good for me. I'm not saying it's not good for others. It's not good for me.
It's not something you can eat every day, you know? I think that's one of the things. I mean, it's like any of those comfort foods, right? Like pancakes or our waffles or our loaded hash brown casserole. Those are not things that you eat every day of the week, but they're certainly something that our folks crave and come back for.
Loaded hash brown casserole, is that Huddle House?
That's Huddle House. Yeah, that was a recent promotion because we have great hash browns. So we took the equity we have there and made some loaded hash brown casserole dishes that can be topped with, you know, your sausage gravy and all the yummy stuff that we serve.
Are the customers at the two different concepts looking for different things much, or is it pretty similar?
So it's a good question. We serve a similar guest. So as you said earlier, we're similar in that we're both in family dining. We both are known for friendly service, affordable prices, satisfying meals. So we have a lot of shared equities. The difference is one, Huddle House tends to serve an audience that is a little bit different than Perkins in terms of someone who might be coming for their 2 eggs breakfast and their coffee every day. So our core demographic kind of skews a little older. And then for Perkins, you have similar customers. We do have a demographic core group that skews a little older, but also we're trying to serve that family occasion. So, you know, it's similar and they're coming to us for similar things, but a little bit different guest dynamic.
And is that reflected much on the menu? I mean, do you have to provide different things at the two different chains?
Well, I mean, we have similar like foundations. We have similar kind of building blocks across the menu. So both brands serve breakfast, lunch, dinner. Both brands have a late night audience and are able to serve a late night guest. And that can be breakfast. So breakfast all day at both brands, which gives us a lot of reach in terms of like different groups that want different things throughout the whole day. So we're able to do that. We've got similar things in that we both have burgers. We both have, omelets. We both have made to order eggs any way you want them. We both have, like kind of those classic chicken dinners and chicken tenders and kids meals, and so basic kind of like similar building blocks from a menu perspective. But then for Perkins, we have a larger kitchen, so it's a larger prototype. So we have more capability to do more on the menu. So at Perkins, you'll see Benedict's, you'll see more expansive breakfast menu. Plus, we have the bakery. So we have the bakery at Perkins, whereas we don't have that at Huddle House. So that gives us a chance to really dive into that bakery occasion as well.
So because the menus are relatively similar, but obviously different audiences, their own personalities, is that helpful for you when it comes to either product development or sourcing of the product?
Yeah, I think so. I think the nice thing about thinking about two brands under our umbrella is there are efficiencies, right? So like your mind automatically goes to like, where can we find efficiencies from a supply chain perspective, from a vendor partnership perspective, from menu planning, menu strategy. That is true. The thing though that we come at it first is like, what is our guest need? That's always the central question for every decision that we make. And what does our operator need? So for our operators and for our guests at Huddle House, we might take a little bit different approach than we would at Perkins, even though like when we think about ideas, it's like we could have a great idea that might show up at Huddle House one way and show up at Perkins another way. Still same central idea, but we can think about the two brands separately. We do have two teams too. We have a Perkins culinary team and we have a Huddle House culinary team. So they have their hats on all the time for the brands that they represent so that we can make sure that we're putting it through the lens of the brand needs.
And so how do you divide your time between those two teams?
I haven't perfected that yet. If you have any good tips for me, I'll take them. I mean, one of the things that I'm always thinking about is what do we need what do we need to get done right now? Where's our urgency? We're building a pipeline for both brands, so that gives us the space to start really thinking creatively as we get further and further out from a testing and ideation perspective. So that's awesome. And then I would say it's not quite 50-50, but I'm certainly thinking about both brands all the time and then dividing my time based on where the need is throughout the week, So, let's say it's like 50-50 is the goal.
And where are you guys based?
Yeah, so I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. So our Ascent Hospitality Management Group is based in Atlanta, Georgia, and then we do have a Perkins test kitchen in Memphis. So we've got some teams kind of spread out to make sure that we're able to develop wherever we have our kitchens.
That makes sense. So what are we going to expect coming soon to Huddle House and Perkins? Don't give away any secrets. I want you to keep your
I won't
job.
give you too many secrets. There's a lot of exciting things happening. I think one of the things we're really trying to make sure that we do is dig into those familiar favorites, right? So we already talked about that. We're in the family dining category. We have guests that really expect those familiar comfort foods from us. So we're thinking about like how do we make sure that we're delivering on that, but also adding our own personal twist to make sure that it continues to be exciting. So for Perkins right now, we've got our Strawberry Festival in market. It's happening from like May 1st to the end of June, which gives us a chance to really dig into those seasonal flavors and offer some new news on our menu. So what you'll see there is like our strawberry pie that comes back every year. You're gonna see our strawberry, French toast and things that we can bring to the menu that drive that breakfast occasion. And then for Huddle House right now, it's a little bit different where we have a guest who has some portable needs. So meaning that we have a pretty decent off-premise business. So we're offering some of our favorite breakfast flavors in a big burrito. What are we calling them? New Big Beast breakfast burritos. So those are going live at Huddle House, and that gives our guest who wants an off-premise occasion or is on the go and moving and on the hurry, dropping kids and going to work and all the things, this 1 pound breakfast burrito that he can come through and have from Huddle House. So slightly different takes on the occasions that we're serving.
So is there more of a demand for off-premises stuff at Huddle House than at Perkins?
Not necessarily. So we've really started to dig into what is the off-premise occasion. We have a decent catering business. That's a big opportunity for us because think again, like, if we serve this like very like familiar foods, like if you are an office complex or need catering, like Perkins is a great solution for you. We also offer that for Huddle House as well. So Perkins has an off-premises business is just as Huddle House does. So about 20% of our business is going out the door for off-premise needs. Again, the business structure is a little different though, whereas Huddle House, we're looking at those kind of like, those on-the-go occasions. So thinking portability in terms of like burritos or tacos and things that we could take. And the Perkins business, we're looking at like catering, of course, but also we have the bakery. So that gives us a chance to look at like not only single like muffins and pie slices, but also you can get a whole pie. You can get, we have a pretty good bundling program with our cookies and our muffins and our cinnamon rolls, which also offers an outlet for us to use our bakery for those off-premise celebratory needs. Cakes
How
too.
about, sorry, which?
Cakes too.
Cakes, yes. How about in terms of beverage? There's a lot of talk about beverage innovation, and I imagine you guys go through a ton of coffee.
Yes,
as well as
coffee. Yeah, coffee is very special to us. So yeah, beverage, and that's one part where I have a lot of love of like, I think that often we forget about beverage from a menu perspective, and not intentionally. It's just, the timelines aren't as long, so you're got your mind on center of the plate items and entrees. And for beverage, what we have to be thinking about is like, what are those table stakes that we must have? So coffee has to be great, it has to be hot, it has to be ready all the time because that's really important to our business. Juice has to be there. Like all of these like breakfast core staple items need to be available to go to our guest. And then
And iced tea,
And
I'm sure
iced
too.
tea, yeah, iced tea has to be there. Lemonade, like that's a core staple for us as a business, especially with Perkins. Our Perkins guest loves lemonade, so that is something that we're thinking about. Like, how do we continue to make lemonade something that can quench that thirst, but also really complement the flavors of our menu items. And then the other thing we're starting to dip our toe in is what's our cocktail program and beer and wine look like for Perkins as we continue to expand our reach in that area. And right now, a lot of things are in test, but what we're trying to figure out is what can specialty beverages do for us, both non-alc and bev alc.
I don't think I realized that Perkins had an alcoholic beverage
Yeah,
program.
yeah. In a
Wow.
few states, we do. So that gives us another opportunity to drive that check.
So when I think of it was just a summer that I waited tables at that big boy
Yeah.
restaurant, but I remember this guy came in anytime I worked the 6 p.m. to 5 a.m. shift,
Yeah.
which I did. I preferred it on weekends because we had a breakfast bar and I made a lot of money.
Oh, I
And
bet.
yeah, and people, all I had to do was like take their plates away and everybody tipped me $1.
Right?
You get 50 guests coming in, it's a nice night. This was the 80s, so it was especially a
That's a
nice
good
night.
night. Yeah.
Yeah, but there was this guy who came in. He ordered decaf coffee, dry whole wheat toast with grape jelly, and that's what he had every time. And I imagine you have a lot of guests who are like that, who like it's the same
That's right.
every time they come in.
Yeah, that's right. And it's like you have to think about, I was just talking to some folks about this when we were at NRA this past weekend, is like, what are the things that are like your non negotiables? You have to have them. You can never get rid of them. They are very, very important real estate. And that is those items. It's like, the 2 egg breakfast that we have gives our, like, that's a very popular menu item, like, because that's the guest that you had at Big Boy, the same that we have, where they come in, they spend the same amount every single time, they're probably never going to spend more. That's okay. And what we need to make sure is the coffee's good and hot, the toast is ready, the eggs are made their way, and then we'll see them again. Like, it's steady, constant. They can count on us to deliver.
And I imagine a big part of your job is, managing supply chain and all that sort of stuff, but also you're supposed to be innovating,
Yeah.
and you do innovate. So how do you find that balance between like making sure that your regular customers are satisfied and then presenting something new for maybe new guests, maybe regulars who want to try something new?
Yeah.
How do you do that balance?
Yeah, it's the hardest job, right? It's something that we're being very intentional about. So, and I know a lot of people are in this world, is like, how do we make sure that we don't alienate our guests that are really important to our core business? So they're going to come get the same thing, the person we were just talking about. And then how do we continue to evolve our menu so that we are relevant, so that people want to come back, so we're driving in a new guest, and then also driving that frequency, because now we've got a menu that's really built on a strong foundation of the items that got us to where we are, and then we're building from there to a place where we know that we're going to continue to be relevant over time. Because remember, we're an iconic like brand. We didn't just open, we've been open for a long time, and it's like we have to maintain who we are as a brand. We have to know who we are, and then we have to continue to serve our guests and continue to think about what tomorrow looks like.
So how weird can you get? I kind of feel like your customers don't want you to be, even if they're adventuresome eaters, they're not coming to Perkins and Huddle House for an adventure necessarily. Or are they? I mean, can you go a bit outside of the box? And if so, how far?
I mean, I think we always want to, right? It's like I
Right.
think the thing that we have to do is we have to build the box, and then we've got to stay within that box, and then over time our box might start to change a little bit. And the way we're watching that is like constantly putting new ideas out there. So even though from the outside in it might look like our menu is pretty traditional, but around that we're, hey, what if we do this? What if we do that? And then we're talking to consumers about that and saying, would you believe this from us? Would you ever come buy this from us? And what I like to watch is over time, as we test and introduce these items, like, are we bringing our guest along with us? So that when we talk next year, it's like, hey, we launched this thing last year. It was a little bit outside of our comfort zone because we knew it could potentially bring in a new guest. And oh, now that guest trusts us to do this new thing. So now how do we use that to sort of baby step to the next adventurous thing. And for us, like, what is adventure? Is it flavor? Is it a new form? Is it honestly, is it how we plate something? Is it how we serve something? Like, adventure can take shape in all sorts of new ways.
Yeah, a garnish can make people say, whoa.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. And I think that that's important to remember. Like, innovation doesn't always have to be like something wacky that is completely unexpected and, like, I don't know, something our guests can't understand or pronounce or something. And because also on the other side of it, we need our team members to be able to execute it. And if they can't execute this new crazy thing, it doesn't even matter how cool it was because it's never going to see the light of day. So I think we have to like keep ourselves balanced in that way as well.
So can you think of a menu item or two that you introduced, whether it was successful or not, that kind of pushed your boundaries recently?
Oh, at Perkins and Huddle House?
Yeah.
Oh goodness, let me think. I'm still pretty new, Bret. I don't know that I'm going to be the best resource for this. We're
When
putting
did you start?
So I just started in October. I'm still
Oh,
pretty
okay.
new. Yeah, so I'm still getting my arms around the business, starting to figure out how we can drive this new guest in. Like, so I'm still learning. I'm thinking we're looking at some things now in terms of, how can we use, nothing's wacky yet that I can like share pretty openly, but I'm gonna get there. We're gonna do some wacky things
Well, you don't have to
within
get
our box.
right. Yeah, you don't want to get that wacky
No, not too
because
wacky. I do want to drive. I do want to see how we can drive some interesting new forms, though. That's something that is on our radar of like how could we make sure that we're driving in a guest that's like, wow, I didn't expect this from Perkins, or oh, I didn't expect to see this new flavor. We're playing around with that right now.
are there some forms or flavors that you can say you're looking at, or is it all secret still?
Sure, no. So, one thing that we're digging into pretty rapidly right now is our bakery case. So, for Perkins, we have a lot of equity in our bakery. There's a lot of passion there, and it's for that guest who's been coming to us for a long time. They know us for that, they trust us for that. We have a ton of equity in not only our pies, but also some of our muffins. We're doing a lot of it in house. A lot of our bakery items are made for you. We have bakers on site, which is really cool, and so we're playing in new forms in the bakery case because we're trying to figure out like if pies are our core business, then what is going to be that new form to drive people in that might say, wow, I never expected that from Perkins. It feels very much like your local bakery where you can get things that either are a sweet treat or something that you can take away as a celebratory item. So some of the things we're looking at is like, gosh, I'm trying to think of what might be a good example. Like fritters, and what about like cinnamon rolls created in a different and interesting new way, like perhaps we're like driving crazy flavors as a topping on our cinnamon rolls, so you have that like really really familiar base that you trust from us, and then we can use flavor and some of the different items that we already have in house to really create something new. So those are some of the things that we're trying to explore right now of really owning that bakery case.
Well, you said crazy flavors on a cinnamon roll. How like I I don't know. You're probably not putting sesame on a cinnamon roll, for example. Maybe you are.
No, I'm thinking like, how can we use flavors that are familiar that you wouldn't normally expect on a cinnamon roll? So when I say crazy, keep in mind that I have crazy under the foundation of a very familiar family dining brand.
Yes, maybe something like orange,
Maybe, like, it
which
could be
is
orange,
pretty
it could be,
successful.
you know, apples and cardamom and, like what, like different, like, deliciousness that we could bring in. Chocolate, it's always a good bet.
Cardamom. There was a lot of cardamom at the National
I
Restaurant
know,
Show.
cardamom is really getting some attention.
Yeah, so that's interesting, and that would be radical, I think,
I think
for your
so. I
customer.
think so. It's very, I mean, it's very, like, should I say it's trending? It's definitely something that's getting attention right now, and it's like those baby steps, right? Of where cinnamon is super familiar, nutmeg is very familiar. Like, how can we continue to use flavor as our bridge to introduce our guests into new flavors that they wouldn't necessarily get, but again, on a very like familiar form where it doesn't feel as big of a risk. Then I might be willing to try something new.
Yeah, and things like cinnamon and nutmeg, those are pumpkin spices, and so is cardamom, although it's a more obscure pumpkin spice. So that could be a nice gateway to
I think
introduce.
so too. I think so too. And for us, like, the bakery is a gateway into our brand. So it's just like beverage. I think about risks. It's like if I'm going to introduce a new flavor that might feel unfamiliar, I'm going to do it where it doesn't feel as much of a financial risk to our guest. So it's like I can spend a little bit on something that's a lower price point, like a beverage or a cinnamon roll, and not feel as nervous because it's not my center of the plate. It's not going to potentially be my meal that I feel disappointed in. Should I
Well,
not like it?
right, yeah, it's a drink. It's okay. You can get through your day. You can throw it away and order a Coke or whatever if that's how you feel. How about things like, I mean, the mainstream quick service chains like Sonic and Dunkin' have been playing around with bursting boba and things like that. Do you
Yeah,
think you might
there's what's that?
I was going to say, do you think you might add textural elements to your drinks?
I mean, I think we always have to think, right, in terms of like texture and all the different ways that we like experience flavor. I think what they're doing is pretty incredible. And I feel like especially with beverage, you're seeing flavor trends move so quickly that I think we have a better chance of getting to items like that quicker than we would on other menu items.
Yeah, as you said, it's less of a risk financially, and in terms of like if you experiment and take a risk with your entree, then you don't get an entree if you don't like it. Whereas with a
That's
drink,
right. That's right.
water.
And we might lose a guest, right? If they come in and say, this is just too far outside of my comfort zone, or what has happened to the restaurant that I know so well. Like, what's going on here? It just feels uncomfortable.
Right? Why is there butterfly pea flour in my tea? It's not going to work.
Just
Um, then I had another thought and I lost it in terms
oh, I
of
bet it was good.
beverage. Um, oh, social media. So is that something that your customers do much of? Are there a lot of like Huddle House and Perkins items showing up on the TikTok and the Instagram? And if so, how does that affect the way you're developing new menu
Yeah,
items?
so we have so I'm in the culinary innovation R&D world. So my partner in crime leads that part of our business. But I will say that one of the things that we are continually pushing is let's make sure that the food that we're producing is Instagrammable, right? Like we want to make sure that we're driving news that can make headlines, that can show up on Instagram feeds. And because our guest is there. Yes, our guest is there. In fact, even our core demographic, like she is using social media, and so we're making sure that we're there to meet her. And then our younger guests, that they are as well. Like that's where they're learning about food. That's where we're putting out a lot of what's going on our menu, so that they can be like, oh my goodness, I need to go try this thing. So we're definitely looking to social media as a way to drive interest.
But I bet you guys have a lot of relatively large portion sizes, and that's fun to post pictures of.
Totally,
Whoa.
yeah. So back to like what we're known for, and again, both brands, it's like we have abundant portions, affordable prices, and so that gives us a chance to talk about the value, because I know that's something that a lot of people are really thinking about right now, is like, what's the value proposition for the things that we serve? Value perception is something we're thinking about. So it's like, how can we make sure that we're like, hey, we're actually a really good place to go, because we have a great value proposition in the fact that we have large, generous portions that we can share out with our guests for a pretty affordable price. And that's something we want to make sure that we're talking about, because that's something that's on the mind of a lot of our consumers right now.
Yeah, in this current environment, it seems like family dining really does have an opportunity to win because you can
Yeah.
come in, you're going to get friendly service.
That's
You're
right.
going to get bottomless coffee. You're going to have a lot of food for not a lot of money
Yeah.
and fun. And you can get in probably. You don't have to like stand in line or make a reservation or anything
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
right. And we're seeing a lot of opportunities to use technology to make sure that even if there is a line, we're, looking at like how can we make sure that we're creating ways that guests don't feel like they have to wait a long time. Like, and I know a lot of people in our category are looking at that too, of like making sure that even though you don't have to make a reservation, that maybe there's like waiting lists that we can look into so that folks know like how long it's going to take. And I would agree. I think family dining is sitting in a really good spot right now. I think as we watch the news and we hear from guests about the things they're struggling with, it's like how can family dining really serve that need, because people still love to eat out. Our guests loves to eat out, and I certainly don't think they want to give up that occasion. And it's like when you want to have a nice dinner with your family or friends, like family dining is there to offer that.
That's true. All right, Mindy Armstrong, you've answered all my questions. Is there anything else you'd like to share about you and your life and yourself? You don't have to.
Me and my life and myself, like what I mean, I'm happy to, like, what's helpful to
Any,
your group?
any parting thoughts about your brands?
My brands, yeah. So I'm really excited about the future for Perkins and Huddle House. I think we have a lot of really amazing things happening, and we're really digging into how do we serve our guests better, and I think that's a really special thing. So excited about what's to come on our innovation calendar. I'm excited about what's happening on our LTO calendar, and you can expect to see a lot of new news from us over the next year.
I'll be sitting and waiting for it.
Awesome.
Thank you a lot.
Thank you a
And
lot. It's so nice to talk to you.
likewise, I hope we get to do it again
I
soon.
hope we do too. You just tell me when. I'll be there.
Excellent.